Hey guys, it's Ash from the Awakened State. So today I want to talk about how to know if you're in the limited mind versus the higher mind. And this is a topic I'm sure many of you already know, but we're going to start covering it more in depth so you can get some new perspectives, some new awareness, and really look at where are you putting your mindset, your energy, your actions, and really starting to connect this to manifesting. Okay, so here's one thing that's really cool. So we understand how the limited mind is the ego, and the higher mind is higher self, higher consciousness. So the limited mind can really be summarized as the victim mindset versus the creator mindset. There is tons of different terminology for this. Ego versus soul, devil versus Jesus. There's shadow versus light. All of these things are literally the same thing disguised as the same thing. So we have the limited mind and the higher mind. So how we can start to realize if we're in the limited mind is we will feel limited in our perceptions, our ideas, our way of doing things, and often we will operate from the fear mind, or we will stay in a place where we are either inconsistent, we feel unmotivated, we lack inspiration, or we have a really hard time taking action. So I've talked about this concept a few times, whether on Instagram story or in previous videos. But what I really want to talk about today is instead of going into ego versus soul, we're going to take it one step further and look at how do we transcend the ego into soul. And what does it really mean to be in this mindset versus the higher mindset? So this is really cool because what I began to discover is we can look at the limited mind as our ego and our past self, whereas the higher mind is connected to quantum intelligence. It's connected to the part of us that is literally limitless, the part of us that is connected to higher self, the part of us that is deeply in the field of limitless possibilities, the unified field of consciousness, whereas the limited mind is limited to its current paradigm, its current mindset, its current, just in general, its current reality. This is the accumulation point of your past thoughts, feelings, actions, experiences. Everything that makes up you is your ego limited mind. So one thing I really began to discover is I started connecting this with how we manifest and how we show up in our life. And then I also began discovering something called the archetypes, and they're called the survival archetypes. And this concept completely blew my mind wide open because it showed me a few things. It showed me how we're either manifesting from a state of our shadow consciousness or we're manifesting from a state of our light consciousness. Yes, we can substitute this with any terminology you want, the limited consciousness versus the higher mind consciousness, and so forth. I'm not going to waste my time there. So basically, one thing that's really cool about understanding these survival archetypes is we can start to look at how we have different ways we approach manifesting and showing up and taking action in our lives that show us if we're operating from a particular place in shadow consciousness. So an archetype is literally an energetic signature. And that energetic signature is how most people take action, how most people will manifest, and how we will literally show up in our lives. So the archetypes are the victim, the prostitute, the wounded child, and the saboteur. Basically, these make up how we take action in a particular way with shadow consciousness. So I found this really fascinating because a lot of people approach the limited mind just from the place of either the victim mindset, or we take it as meaning just, the ego is bad and we don't really want to go there, and we don't really want to look at shadow work because that is bad, and we want to be high vibe, we want to be positive all the time, so we don't really want to go there. But here's where I found it so fascinating. We can be in the limited mind, but we can be in it in different ways. So here's the thing. If we're in a place of the limited mind with the prostitute, we are severely lowering our worth and our values. If we're being in the limited mind with our wounded child, we are frequently in an energy of passive, powerless feelings of, I just let people do it for me. I just am completely powerless over my situation. When you think about a child needs things all the time. They need to be taken care of. They want someone to take care of them. And so there's this energy of where they're super passive. And so it's almost as if it's the mentality of please come save me, please come bless me, that sort of vibe. So the next one is in the limited mind, we have the victim. And this is the one that many people are familiar with, and it dominates how we take action in our solar plexus. So the victim will literally be in a victim mindset, feeling powerless over their circumstance and how they take action. So this will be the person who's frequently in a story of, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Or they get caught up in complaints and excuses and refuse to take action. Also connected to manifesting. Then we have the most powerful, which is the saboteur. Bringing out my little inner French girl a little. Okay, so the saboteur sabotages. They will do everything correctly. They will know exactly what they're doing. They will even be very smart and intelligent about it. But they will create self-sabotage because their energy isn't fully in it. They will be in a place where they're doing everything right, but there's a part of them that doesn't believe, that needs to prove themselves, and completely needs to check all of the boxes and do everything in a linear, logical fashion, and dismisses their own quantum magic. Okay, so that's the shadow. And understanding shadow. How does this connect to the limited mind? Well, as you can see, in the limited mind, we literally limit ourselves. We don't allow ourselves to expand into higher planes of consciousness. Instead, we fall into traps of, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I can't do this, it isn't possible for me, I'm not good enough, and all of these excuses and complaints, and then we self-sabotage. When we look at it like this, the limited mind shows us so much about our current paradigm. It shows us who we were. It shows us our past. But here's the thing. We don't have to stay there. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. And we fall down rabbit holes of getting obsessed with healing. And then we fall down this trap of using shadow work as this obsession and this romanticizing of the shadow, that where we completely forget to step into the other side. And then we promote so much self-sabotage with our results because we stay in the limited mind. So this is what's really cool. So when I started looking at this information, one thing became so obvious to me. It's really about learning to alchemize our shadow and bring it into the light consciousness. So what I created was an amazing quiz that has you go over if you're in light or shadow consciousness with each of these archetypes. So the quiz is basically made up so that you can figure out what is your archetype with manifesting and how does it apply to your life now. And one thing that's cool with the results is I have the medicine to help you heal it, and then I have empowered prompts to help you dig in. And if you have the light consciousness, I have prompts that help you amplify your current archetype. It's a really fun, really highly packed, valuable quiz. So I will be releasing that in the comments. And basically what I want to talk about is how do we transcend to the light consciousness? So it's really cool. So if you think about it in terms of the limited mind, so the limited mind is literally the person who is in one room and they only see this room. They only see this particular room and they don't know that there's other rooms that they can walk into. It's almost as if they're on one single step of the staircase and they're only seeing light from this perspective. When we're in the limited perception, we're forgetting about all of the limitless possibilities and quantum probabilities of how we can manifest, how we can receive our desires. We're staying stuck in a limited perception because that is all we know in our past experiences. So here's the thing. A lot of the times, you're not going to know what you're manifesting and how it's going to happen because you haven't created it yet. You literally haven't created it yet. So you're trying to rely on your past to get forward, but you're still tripping up by snapping back to the past because you're not allowing yourself to step into possibility, which is what we're really talking about here. It's about how do you step into full possibility. It's about learning to transcend the shadow and look at the other perceptions. Look at the new way of doing things. Looking at new choices. Looking at new actions. And then we start to open ourselves up out of that shadow consciousness and start to move into light consciousness. And this is so powerful because we can start to see that the limited mind, the ego, only wants to show us this set, really direct, repetitive, familiar paradigm of choices, habits, associations. And the possibility, the growth mindset, the higher mind is unlocking all sorts of perceptions, all sorts of possibilities, all sorts of probabilities. But if we're not willing to step into possibility, we will default smack ourselves back into victim consciousness because we're only saying life happens to me, not life happens through me. And that will make or break your results, your manifesting, how you heal, how you take choices in life, how you take action in life, how you show up in life. And all of that will snowball into what is your perception that is fueling your reality. So this is where it's really fun because you can start to see that it's not about romanticizing your shadow. It's about alchemizing your shadow. And the more you learn to alchemize your shadow, you can start to change the channel you're telling. And that really is the start of everything because that's true healing. Removing victim consciousness and moving into creator consciousness is pure healing. It's getting intentional with your life. It's choosing to step into emotional empowerment. So, what is the hugest way we can start to really move out of the victim mindset and into the possibility consciousness? Well, it's to first bring awareness to the fact that you're in a particular shadow consciousness. The only way to really transcend into the light is to understand where the heck are you getting stuck. Because if you don't know where you're getting stuck, it's going to be hard to get out. So the first step is awareness every time, because you have to figure out well, which shadow archetype am I really being influenced by? Is it the prostitute? Is it the victim? Is it the wounded child? Or is it the saboteur? Am I in a place of self-sabotage? So this material is so powerful because it can show us exactly why we're getting stuck. Once we understand where we're getting stuck, now it's about leaning into possibility. It's about choosing to step out of, well, this is the only way things can happen. This is the only way I can control things from happening. This is the only way I can see how the world works. And instead, we're stepping into this, it's almost like a rainbow. It's like this moment where you see one reality. But the more you step into possibility, you start opening your mind to more and more and more and more and more and more and more possibilities. And it's almost as if you're fully stepping into the quantum experience, because here's the thing, like the higher mind knows the blueprint. Like the higher mind sees things that the lower mind can't, because it only sees the past. So the higher mind is connected to infinite intelligence. It's connected to quantum intelligence and so forth. 5D consciousness. Whoa! So basically, when we're in the higher mind, we can see things beyond what we can see. We can step. It's like, this is what it really means to activate the third eye. Like, that's what you're doing. You're stepping into limitless possibilities of how you're seeing things. So when you're in only one perception, it's like you're seeing like this narrow, really closed-minded view. Like, I can't do this because of this. I can't do this because of that. It's like, but when we're in that place, we're not saying, well, how can I begin to see things differently? How can I start to do this differently? How could it actually happen? So then we're proactive, and then we're moving into possibility. And when we're in possibility, we start shifting. And I think it's this really critical moment where you start to see that the soul always knows. The soul always knows. But are you listening? Are you tapped in? Or are you getting sucked down the rabbit hole of the shadow consciousness, the victim mindset? Where are you getting so stuck that you can't transcend the ego? Because there's this shift that happens, and it's so powerful to witness when it all just suddenly makes sense. Like the pieces come together, like everything just molds, and it's like the synchronicities explode. The right alignment begins to happen, and the path naturally reveals itself when we start to alchemize that shadow. And that is ultimately what I am here to teach. So I invite you to dig into this beautiful quiz I created, and also think about how can you start to shift out of limited thinking into possibility thinking. And even if you feel called, journal about it, go on a walk and think about it. I invite you to just explore this concept, because it can seriously change your life. It is such a powerful concept to really just like, oh, I get it now. And that's what I want for you. So I invite you to take this quiz, see where you're currently at in terms of your archetypes, and have fun.